The winter does not arrive gently in the medieval world. It comes like a slow invasion, first in the shortening of days, then in the bitter edge of wind that creeps beneath doors and through the cracks of wooden walls. For a medieval peasant, winter is not a season. It is a test of endurance, a quiet, grinding battle against hunger, cold, and isolation. Survival is never guaranteed. It is earned, day by day, through preparation, sacrifice, and resilience. By the time the first frost touches the ground, the outcome of winter has already been decided. The long months of spring and summer were not merely for growth, but for survival planning. Every sheaf of grain harvested, every vegetable stored, every animal slaughtered or preserved was a calculation against starvation. A poor harvest meant a deadly winter. There was no safety net, no stored abundance beyond what the land and labour had provided. The peasant family understood this deeply. As autumn faded, they counted not wealth, but days of food. Inside their small homes, often little more than timber frames packed with mud and straw, the cold quickly made itself known. These houses, called wattle and daub huts, were built for necessity, not comfort. They had few windows, and those were often just small openings covered with cloth or shutters. Glass was rare and expensive. Insulation was minimal. Wind slipped easily through walls, under doors, and through the thatched roofs above. The hearth, placed at the centre of the home, became the heart of survival. Fire was everything. Keeping that fire alive was a constant struggle. Firewood had to be gathered in large quantities before winter began, often from distant forests. This was labour-intensive and sometimes dangerous, especially for poorer families who did not own land or rights to nearby woods. Once winter settled in, fresh wood was scarce. Every log was precious. Fires were kept low to conserve fuel, providing just enough warmth to prevent freezing, but rarely enough to feel comfortable. The cold inside the home was relentless. Families slept together. Shared body heat made the difference between life and death on the coldest nights. Animals were sometimes brought indoors, chickens, goats, even small livestock, not only to protect them from the cold, but also to add warmth to the cramped space. The air inside grew thick with smoke, dampness, and the smell of animals. It was uncomfortable, even suffocating, but it was warmer than the outside. Food was the next great challenge. Fresh produce disappeared quickly after autumn. What remained were preserved supplies, dried grains, salted meat, hard cheeses, and root vegetables like turnips and carrots, stored in cellars or pits. Bread, often coarse and dark, made from barley or rye, became the staple of daily life. Pottage, a thick stew made from whatever ingredients were available, simmered endlessly over the hearth. It was simple, repetitive, and often lacking in nutrition, but it filled the stomach. Hunger was a constant companion. Rations were carefully controlled, especially as winter dragged on. Families knew that if they ate too much too early, they might not survive until spring. This led to a slow, creeping malnutrition. Bodies weakened. Illness became more likely. Even the strongest individuals felt the toll of reduced food intake over months of cold and darkness. Water, surprisingly, was also a challenge. Streams and wells could freeze, making access difficult. Snow could be melted, but this required fuel, another precious resource. Sometimes, water had to be carried from distant sources, a dangerous task in icy conditions. Dehydration, combined with poor nutrition, further weakened the body. Clothing offered limited protection. Most peasants owned only a few garments, typically made of rough wool or linen. Wool retained some warmth, even when damp, but it was heavy and uncomfortable. Layers were essential, but not always available. Cloaks and simple hoods helped shield against wind, yet extremities, hands, feet, and faces, were often exposed. Frostbite was a real danger, especially for those forced to work outdoors. Work did not stop in winter. Though the fields lay dormant, survival tasks continued. Firewood still needed to be gathered, tools had to be repaired, animals required care and feeding. In some regions, peasants engaged in winter crafts, spinning wool, weaving cloth, or making simple goods, to prepare for trade or use in the coming year. These activities were done in dim light, often by the flicker of fire or a small oil lamp, conserving every bit of fuel. Illness spread easily in these conditions. The cold weakened immune systems, while cramped living quarters allowed disease to pass quickly from one person to another. Respiratory infections were common, worsened by constant exposure to smoke from indoor fires. Without modern medicine, even minor illnesses could become fatal. Herbal remedies and traditional knowledge provided some relief, but they were limited in effectiveness. Isolation added another layer of hardship. Heavy snow and poor conditions could cut off entire villages for weeks. Travel became dangerous or impossible. This meant no access to markets, no outside help, and no communication with neighbouring communities. Families were left to rely entirely on their own resources. In this isolation, fear grew. Fear of running out of food, fear of illness, fear of the unknown. And yet, despite these immense challenges, medieval peasants endured. Survival was not just about physical resilience, but mental strength. Routine provided structure. Daily tasks, no matter how small, created a sense of purpose. Faith also played a significant role. Many peasants turned to religion for comfort, believing that their suffering had meaning, or that divine protection would see them through. Winter festivals, though modest, offered moments of relief. Brief pauses in the struggle where communities gathered, shared food, and found warmth in each other's presence. Community itself was a crucial factor in survival. Though individual families struggled, villages often worked together. Resources might be shared in times of extreme need. Knowledge of preserving food, managing illness, or enduring cold was passed down through generations. This collective experience formed a kind of unwritten survival guide, shaped by centuries of hardship. As winter stretched on, time seemed to slow. Days were short, nights long and oppressive. The cold never fully retreated, but eventually, almost imperceptibly, change began. The days grew slightly longer. The grip of frost weakened. Snow melted into mud. For the medieval peasant, these were signs not just of a changing season, but of survival itself. Spring did not erase the suffering of winter, but it marked its end. Those who endured emerged thinner, weaker, but alive. Fields would be prepared again. Seeds would be sown. The cycle would continue. In the medieval world, winter was never just endured. It was survived through a combination of preparation, sacrifice, and sheer determination. Every decision made before and during those cold months carried weight. Every resource mattered, and every person who lived to see spring carried with them the quiet victory of having faced one of the harshest challenges of their time and lived.